We're back. Thursday, October 1st, 1942. Dear Kitty, I got a terrible shock yesterday. Suddenly at 8 o'clock, the bell rang loudly, of course. I thought that someone had come. You'll guess who I mean, but I calmed down a bit when everyone said it must be the urchins or perhaps the postman. The days are becoming very quiet here. Lewin, a small Jewish chemist and dispenser, works for Mr. Kraler in the kitchen. He knows the whole building well, and therefore we are always afraid that he'll take it into his head to have a peep in the old laboratory. We are as quiet as mice. Who, 3 months ago, would have ever guessed that Quicksilver Ann could sit still for hours and, what's more, could? The 29th was Miss Van Dan's birthday. Although it could not be celebrated in a big way, we managed a little party in her honor with a specially nice meal, and she received some small presents and flowers. Red carnations from her husband that seemed to be fairly tradition. To pause for a moment on the subject of Miss Van Dan, I must tell you that her attempts to flirt with Daddy are a source of continual irritation for me. She strokes his face and hair, pulls her skirt right up, and makes so-called witty remarks. Trying in this way to attract Pim's attention. Funny. Pim, thank goodness, doesn't find her either attractive or funny, so he doesn't play ball. Mummy doesn't behave like this with Mr. Van Dan. I've said to Mrs. Van Dan's face. Now and then Peter comes out of his shell and can be quite funny. We're having one thing in common, from which everyone usually gets a lot of amusement. We both love dressing up. He appeared in one of Mrs. Van Dan's very narrow dresses, and I put on his suit. He wore a hat and a cap. The grown-ups were doubled up in laughter, and we enjoyed ourselves as much as they did. Ellie has bought new skirts for Margot and me at Bijenkorf's. The material is rotten, just like sacking, and they cost 24 florins and 7.50 florins, respectively. What a difference compared with before the war. Another nice thing I've been keeping up my sleeve. Ellie has written some secretarial school or other and ordered a correspondence course in shorthand for Margot, Peter, and me. You wait and see what perfect experts we shall be by the next year. In any case, it's extremely important to be able to write in a code. Yours, Anne. Saturday, October 3rd, 1942. Dear Kitty, there was another dust-up yesterday. Mummy kicked up a frightful row and told Daddy just what she thought of me. And then she had an awful fit of tears. So, of course, off I went too. And I'd got such an awful headache anyway. Finally, I told Daddy that I'm much more fond of him than Mummy, to which he replied that I'd get over that. But I don't believe it. I have to simply force myself to stay calm with her. Daddy wishes that I would sometimes volunteer to help Mummy when she doesn't feel well or has a headache, but I shan't. I'm working hard at my French and am now reading La Belle Nivermaise. Yours, Anne. Friday, October 9th, 1942. Dear Kitty, I've got only dismal and depressing news for you today. Our many Jewish friends are being taken away by the dozen. These people are treated by the Gestapo without a shred of decency, being loaded into cattle trucks and sent to Westerbork, the big Jewish camp in Drent. Westerbork sounds terrible. Only one washing cubicle for 100 people, and not nearly enough lavatories. There's no separate accommodation. Men, women, and children all sleep together. One hears only of frightful immortality because of this, and a lot of the women, even girls who stay there any length of time, are expecting babies. It is impossible to escape. Most of the people in the camp are branded as inmates by their shaven heads, and many also by their Jewish appearance. It is as bad as this in If it is as bad as this in Holland, whatever will it be like in the distant and barbarous regions they are sent to? We assume that most of them are murdered. The English radio speaks of their being gassed. Perhaps that is the quickest way to die. I feel terribly upset. I couldn't tear myself away as Mike told me these dreadful stories, and she herself was equally wounded up for the matter. Just recently, for instance, a poor old crippled Jewess was sitting on her doorstep She had been told to wait there by the Gestapo, who had gone to fetch a car to take her away. The poor old thing was terrified by the guns that were shooting at the English planes overhead, by the glaring beams of the searchlights, but Mike did not dare take her in. No one would undergo such a risk. The Germans strike without the slightest mercy. Ellie, too, is very quiet. Her boyfriend has got to go to Germany. She's afraid that the airmen who fly over our homes will drop their bombs, often weighing 1,000,000 kilos, on Dirk's head. Jokes such as, "He's not likely to get 1,000,000, and it only takes one bomb," are in rather bad taste. Dirk is certainly not the only one who has to go. Trainloads of boys leave daily. If they stop at a small station en route, sometimes some of them manage to get unnoticed and escape. Perhaps a few manage it. This, however, is not the end of my bad news. Have you ever heard of hostages? That's the latest thing in penalties for sabotage. Can you imagine anything so dreadful? Prominent citizens, innocent people, are thrown into prison to await their fate. The subject can't be traced to the Gestapo. Simply put about 5 hostages against the wall. Announcements of their death appear in the papers frequently. These outrages are described as fatal accidents. Nice people, the Germans. To think that I was once one of them too. No! Hitler took away our nationality a long time ago. In fact, Germans and Jews are the greatest enemies in the world. Yours, Anne. Friday, October 16th, 1942. Dear Kitty, I'm terribly busy. I've just translated a chapter out of La Belle and made notes of new words. Then a perfectly foul math problem and 3 pages of French grammar. I flatly refuse to do these math problems every day. Daddy agrees that they're vile. I'm almost better at them than he is, though neither of us are much good, and we often have to fetch Margot. I'm the furthest on of the 3 of us in shorthand. Yesterday, I finished The Assault. It's quite amusing, but doesn't touch Jupe ter Hull. As a matter of fact, I think Sissy van Marksveld is the first-rate writer. I shall definitely let my children read her books. Mummy, Margot, and I are as thick as thieves again. It's really much better. Margot and I got on the same bed together last evening. It was frightful squash, but that was just the fun of it. She asked if I could read my diary. She could read my diary. I said yes, at least bits of it. And then I asked if I could read hers, and she said yes. Then we got on the subject of the future. I asked her what she wanted to be, but she wouldn't say, and made a great secret of it. I gathered something about teaching, but I'm not sure if I'm right. But I think so. Really, I shouldn't be so curious. This morning I was lying on Peter's bed, having chased him off at first. He was furious with me, not that I cared very much. He might be a bit more friendly with me for once. After all, I did give him an apple yesterday. I asked Margot if she thought I was very ugly. She said that I was quite attractive, and that I had nice eyes. Rather vague, don't you think? Till next time, yours, Anne.